Hope so.
Okay. So one more time, please tell me, what is product operations about?
Yeah, so the way I like to think about it is when you think about the maturity of an organization. So if you think about startups where all the investment is going into product market fit, all the people that are there are really just there to build something as quickly as possible, to understand if customers want it, to understand if they can make it viable and that they can make money out of it. At that stage, everyone's just mucking in, right? Everyone's doing operations. Everyone is making sure that they can build something, get it out the door, that they can get the insight in quick enough. And they're at a scale where actually operational efficiency isn't the key to their success. Product market fit is the key to their success. If you think about that maturity of organization, and then you think at the other end of the scale, like a mature organization that has maybe even been around like 20, 30 years, um, in those places, you actually need to make sure, and you maybe have a team of operational people doing this, you need to make sure that insights are coming in and they're efficient, that the teams can operate really quickly given what they have coming into the team and all the various different inputs. And that might be long-term customer research, it might be really short-term usability testing, but making sure that everyone's set up and organized and ready to build what they need to for their customers without really having to think about how they're doing it. And we always say that product operations focuses on how versus what, and particularly in these mature orgs. So this again is just my opinion and what I've seen and what I've kind of lived through. In those organizations that have multiple tens of product teams, that we call product teams that may just really be delivery machines and feature teams, we want to try and get to a better place. In those places, you need operational efficiency to make sure they can deliver quickly enough to customers, to learn about what customers are looking for, and then to iterate with speed as well. And that can come in multiple facets, right? So insight, streamlining, getting information and data into the teams is one part of it. You can also think about tool governance is kind of fits slightly into product operations, and some of the examples that I have, but making sure we're using the right tools, that people understand how to use them, we're getting the most value out of those tools. We also think a little bit around the side of the people organization side. So product manager onboarding, even things like recruitment processes and training I've been involved in before. Anywhere that we can make efficiencies, we can have a more effective practice, more effective principles around how we work is where product operations will fit. And in those mature roles, you're probably going to see like a slightly larger team. You might even have a director of product operations, a head of, and then multiple product operations managers. In that world, those product operations managers really focus on maybe 1 to 3 teams, really get deep into it, making sure those teams are really able to effectively operate.
Like per product ops manager, 1 to 3 teams?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But that's in those larger scale orgs, right? And in those, product operations will be working with product leadership to make sure those teams are strategically aligned, that their OKRs are understood and are being tracked, and all the measures and metrics that a team might understand of how it operates could fit into the world of product operations as well. And that's the 2 extreme ends, right? And then there's the size in the middle, the maturity in the middle, sorry, where you're probably very quickly moving from startup to, you're in like scale up world, right? You may be just about to go public or just have, and your teams have maybe gone from like 2 product teams to 10 very, very quickly. And the org is rapidly scaling in all functions. This is where I kind of see myself as product ops in supporting product leadership, but also cross-functional leadership. So the design directors, the engineering directors, in making sure that we can actually effectively scale, given some of the foundations that we're putting in place, some of the standards we're putting in place. And that's not to say that my only role is to make sure that, we have standard meetings at certain times and we talk about things in certain ways, because that's just a kind of a starting point, some foundations to understand how we actually might want to work together. And product operations should be iterative, right? Like a lot of the things that I do are still experimental. They may be like long-term experiments to see how something happens over a couple of quarters. But in that place, you're probably looking, usually what tends to happen is you're hiring like a product ops team of 1, which is what I am at the moment. And you try and then grow and
At
scale.
Bumble.
At Bumble, yes.
Yeah, okay.
My role here, and actually my role previously at Farfetch, are not too dissimilar. Farfetch was a larger organization. They have like 10,000 people, but my area of remit was probably this similar sort of size to what I have at Bumble. So therefore, the duties that I perform are similar. And I'm really working with that leadership to make sure that those teams know how to operate, that we're taking away a lot of the burden, a lot of the boring work, as I call it. Like, I don't want 10 teams to be writing 10 different like one pager or spec docs. I want us to have a standardized model, but eventually I want us to kind of step away from those things and to make sure that we're actually collaborating together effectively as a team. So you can actually reduce things like one pages and spec docs. So I'm going through this iteration at the moment.
I've got lots of questions. So, all right. So we started the conversation with, and that's not on the video in the video right now, but we started the conversation with you saying, well, product operations have always been part of it and have always been done, but it's not been, collected, or that it hasn't been labeled as such and kind of grouped into a team. So we started with that, and then you mentioned a couple of things, and that's where my brain stops. Like, this is the part that where I was thinking, like, why do we need this? You started with things like, for example, when it's about user research or getting data to make decisions. We have user researchers, we have research teams, we have designers who are very skilled in doing user research. So what's the difference? And we also have like analysts, right? So we have data analysts, business analysts, we have product people who are very skilled in analyzing data and so on. What's it like? Why do we need product ops if we have a user researcher or a data analyst, for example?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm certainly not in a position where I would be doing research or doing product analytics, right? That is certainly not where my skills or desire lies. But when you look at
or desire,
you look at like a modern product organization, and I think you just reeled off maybe like 4 different function titles there. And there's way more, right? We have multiple types of engineering, data science, all different levels, content design, we have product design. You didn't mention, but we still have to consider product marketing, larger marketing, sales, branding teams, legal teams, finance teams, safety teams. All of these teams are incredibly skilled at what we do. That's why we hire them and we support them and we train them to get even better. But when you start thinking about all those various different functions, it's very easy for them to kind of fragment and move slowly further away from each other. And eventually, once you've got your parallel lines that shift like 1 or 2 degrees, they end up very far away. Product ops theoretically is to make sure that all those lines stay together, that those teams are able to collaborate really effectively. It's fantastic if you have like a really strong research team. Not all product companies do. It's great if you have a great, strong product analytics team. That's not always the case. Sometimes those teams are small. Sometimes those teams need to grow and they focus very much on what they're doing. I think product operations is really in a position where they can make all those connections even stronger and to make sure that the good work that they're doing can still flow into the product teams and they can collaborate. The other thing I would say on top of that, if you look like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably even before I was doing this type of role, and you look at what a product manager had to do, it was really to interface with probably a designer and engineering team. And that was it. You'd probably have some link to the business and maybe a link to the marketing team. That was it. Now the product manager has to sit in the middle of a swirling, chaotic world of connecting with everyone, continually pushing out various different types of communications, at the same time as trying to be what a product manager is expected to be, right? And I think product operations come in and alleviate a little bit of that pressure. And I think that's where you see in these scale-ups and in the organizational like maturity and scale that I work at, that I can kind of add value in removing a little bit more of that noise, being a bit more of a linchpin for the product organization as a whole for the rest of the org as well. And I think like product operations sits in, at least in this middle branch, right, of like scaling organizations. So not the startups, not the mature ones, where you kind of sit there and you are, like people say, like you're the glue of the product org. Like I'm quite often the person that the rest of the people in the organization will come to say, who is working on X, or who is doing Y, or what team can I talk to do this? Or, I get finance questions, I get legal questions, and I don't always know how to answer them, but I generally am able to navigate the org enough and to have built enough relationships within the org to know who to go to for what. And I think we kind of sit as a partner to the cross-functional leadership to make sure that all the great things they're doing can still be realized in this chaotic world.
How big is Bumble now?
1,200 people, I think.
Okay. Official or unofficial numbers?
I honestly don't know.
No. Okay, so basically you're not the guys who are doing the work, you are the guys who want to enable others to do the work better. Is that right? So
Yeah,
what's the difference then to an agile coach or a product coach?
Yeah, so I'll take the second one first. I think a product coach is probably more of a temporary position within an organization. We might highlight an area that we really feel like we're struggling with from a capability perspective and bring someone in with that level of expertise that can kind of help us maybe on and off for a number of months. I think the product ops role that I have in the size of organization that I like to work in is really akin to being an internal product coach. And I think I say that because there's a bunch of areas that I can kind of jump into if required and support and help and guide and enable. We are essentially enablers in this size of organization. In the more mature ones, it's slightly different. The second position, agile coaches. So I've worked with agile coaches in the past at various different organizations, and the way that role has evolved was really coming from kind of Scrum Masters. As an organization is becoming agile, what you tend to see is that they go very strong on the frameworks and the structure, and they need someone to make sure that someone that's in the team, usually, hopefully, is the best way to make sure that the agile processes and the behaviors, at least, that we're trying to see through agile actually stick and become mindset change. And that's why I see like Scrum Masters going quite hard on the frameworks initially, and then stepping back and allowing the flexibility that agile really brings. And I think that stepping back, this is again my opinion, but that stepping back is where the Scrum Master kind of evolves into the agile coach, and will start to move around the organization to focus very specifically on how we do agile software engineering, how we be more flexible and more efficient at agile software engineering. So I think, at least in the organizations I worked with in the past at Farfetch, we had a team of agile coaches that we worked together like relatively closely. They had their own agile software engineering projects that they would work on across a very large engineering organization, like hundreds and hundreds of people. The product operations team very much focused on the whole product development lifecycle, the whole cross-functional team, which of course included engineering, but also included design and research and analytics, etc. And again, not all those team members are full-time team members in a product team. Research, for example, the majority of the time you don't have an embedded researcher for the whole length of the time that product team exists. You might have them coming in and going out again, depending on projects. I think product operations can also help with that. So I think those two roles are quite distinctly different. Again, just to repeat, product coaches are more of a temporary, we have some problems we need to solve. We need external expertise to help us to do that, because we just don't have that capability internally at the moment on a temporary basis. And agile coaches are very much focused on software engineering.
Well, now I also have to correct the temporary nature of the product coaches. I know product coaches who are employed. I was one for a short period of time, but and I'm a big advocate of employing product coaches actually, and making them work together with agile coaches to look at the organization from various different aspects. And yeah, so that was another reason why I was thinking, like, what do we need product ops for if we have product coaches, and we could hire product coaches regarding the aspect of helping teams to get along, right, and continue or even improving in their work and steering people towards the right directions and
Yeah,
so on and so forth.
I think so that's based on my experience of working with product coaches. So I obviously can't speak for all of them or all organizations that employ them. I think what you'll probably find, and I guess I'm kind of alluding to at the same time, is that my role and the way that I like to act in my role and the organizations I like to work with is basically an internal product coach. And the title that we have is product operations. Now, whether that actually reflects other product operations people's and teams worlds, maybe not, and maybe the more mature organization that is as a larger product operations team with a head of, honestly, that's not probably the world that I would go and or the companies I would go and work for. It's not really where I find that my capabilities are like used to the best of their ability. So you can call that product operations, but I think actually what I'm doing, and actually we kind of mentioned a word earlier, but it's more like product enablement, right? And maybe for me personally, in the way that my mind's evolving on this, being a product enabler is like an internal coach who stays there is employed for a number of months or even longer term.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, for me, it's still a bit. I think the lines are blurred. So I've always been in product management and through different roles. And regarding the piece the product role has been closer to design and engineering than to the business side is a sad thing that I experienced when I moved from telecommunications to the digital space. So I started my product manager career in telecommunications. And there I was like part of the business side actually, and would do the whole concept stuff like research, thinking, like basically really doing the heavy thinking, the strategy, the positioning. How do we want to position this? How do we want to actually create the product, as in the logic behind, right? So not like the experience itself, but the logic behind, and so on and so forth. And then when I moved to the digital space, it was a shock, like seeing like, oh wait, I don't have to think here anymore. I just need to do like some resource management, which is like, but okay. So then at one point, like switching a couple of companies, and I got to the point back again where I finally was able to work on the conceptualizing part and closer to the business again. But even that is something, like in the whole process, I never had a person who would take over the operational stuff from me, right? So who would take care of of making it work smoothly, other than a scrum master or an agile coach. And that's why I'm so confused about the role of product ops in a product organization, right? So I would work with a researcher in my team, either fixed or like temporarily coming in or going out, or I would have a designer in my team who's also well served and well skilled in user research. I would do the data analysis myself, or would work with data scientists and so on. The onboarding and hiring, as you mentioned, we would do it, right? So the product managers would be involved in hiring. HR together with the product manager would onboard the new hire, and OKRs, as you mentioned, was either tracked by the product manager so that the team works well with OKRs, or with the or through the agile coach. But like all in all, yes, I do remember that it was quite a lot of things on the shoulders of the product manager, and it is a heavy role where you have to do a lot of work yourself. So yeah, I think I get the point, as in, the product manager doesn't have to do everything.
Yeah, I mean, the product manager should be understanding and solving customer problems, right?
Yeah.
Making sure that via doing that, we're able to make money
and make sure it's viable.
That's it, right? Like, we solve customer problems, and hopefully we have made enough we understand those problems to such a degree that we're able to, generate revenue from them. That's exactly how a product team and a product manager should work. I think product operations, and again, you did just mention maybe like 5 different things that as a product manager you had to thought about, which actually only some of them were definitely about understanding and solving customer problems and making money from them. There was a bunch of other stuff in there that still relevant actually for like a strong and healthy product culture. I do think product managers of a certain level, of course, should be part of the hiring process, part of the recruitment and hiring process, part of the onboarding process, part of kind of capability development process. Absolutely, they should. Should they be thinking about that more than thinking about what they need to do for the business? No, not really. And I think like product operations, again, if we think more about this like word enablement, I don't think actually, if I consider the teams I've worked with over the past like number of years, it's not a case that and we know this, right? Like not every single product team is the same. They're made of humans and all humans are very different. And we want it to be like that because that's the way we solve customer problems in the best way. But all of the teams themselves have a degree of flexibility to work in the way that they need to work with the people that they have, the various different capabilities and even personalities that they have. And the problems they're trying to solve and the business area that they sit in, all those teams are very different. As a product operations person who considers themselves an enabler, like looking at the superpowers of each team and trying to make sure that they're even better, I have to view each team as slightly different. There are teams that require me to probably be with them a little bit more and maybe to focus on product experimentation in the discovery phase. I can help with that and I can make sure that you have the right, not just about the right tools and frameworks, but the right mindset to understand why you might want to work in that way. I can help with that. Another team,
and maybe also bring in people who can help the team to get there, right?
Absolutely. You know, if a team is particularly working on something, let's just say in the data science space, right? We might have people in the organization that either have that capability and they're on a different team or they're part of a data science team, but they're finding it hard to kind of collaborate together. The product operations person usually has quite a good view of the organization, the product organization, and what different teams are working on and the aims that they have, and at the different stages that they're at from a maturity, capability, and discovery and planning stages. And they can bring in the right people at the right time. And it can simply just be, hey, have you considered bringing so-and-so into this conversation because they are a data science engineer and actually you should have them in this conversation. There's other teams, other product teams that are possibly really good at experimentation, really good at discovery and don't need that kind of work depending on the customer problems they're faced with. But actually they really struggle just to collaborate on the day-to-day. Okay, product operations can come in and kind of help with that. Another team, again, as we mentioned earlier, might just be really struggling to connect with, say, the research and the analytics team. That's all the connection that they have from a technical perspective and a team collaboration perspective. Product operations can come and help with that. So I don't think there's like a one size fits all, you know, I am a product operations lead and I do this only. I just don't see that happening in the scale and maturity of the organizations that I work in. Again, on those mature organization scale, there probably are product operations managers that solely focus on one area with just like I say, 1 to 3 teams. They might pick up a little bit of that enablement, but they might really just be focused on 1 or 2 areas of improvement. What I really want to get to, and this is where I kind of lean into the kind of product coach side of the world, is to ensure that those teams are working effectively, working efficiently by focusing on how they work, but not just that. I want to make sure that they have a mindset of continuous improvement, that they're able to diagnose challenges within their own teams and to scale effectively. So we actually get to like a really agile way of working with a strong product thinking mindset. That's what my aim is.
Nice. This should be your headline. I help you work. How did you phrase it? Work in the agile way with a product mindset. This is really
product
nice.
thinking mindset. That's what I want.
Product thinking mindset.
I want product teams to be outcome driven, right? And you know, we can say that, and it's a real throwaway comment. It's kind of theoretical in a lot of product organizations because a lot of product organizations aren't outcome driven. And even when they are, certain teams might not be, and they might struggle to be because maybe of their stakeholders or just the capabilities that they have or the experience they've had previously. And that's a real challenge for them. This is, again, where product operations can kind of step in.
Yeah. Wonderful. Looking at the time, I will stop the recording here. Thank you for your spontaneity. So again, like this was not scripted, not anything. I just I just wanted to talk to Chris to understand what product operational, and he started in such a way that I thought, oh, this is going to be amazing. This needs to be shared. So thank you, Chris. I'm going to stop here, and then I will continue with my actual question why I wanted to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the spontaneity.